you had a static pile on the edge of a wild forest, you could create a really amazingly diverse microbial community. But IMO plays this amazing line in the nuance of fungal development that allows you to culture a large amount of diverse microbes in 3 to 4 weeks.
Revive your soil. Let's grow more with less. The Soil Summit is a place where wisdom meets the earth, where seeds of knowledge grow into transformation. Together, we restore the land, nourish our communities, and cultivate a thriving future. Let's dig deep, rise up, and regenerate together. Make yourself an amazing day. Thanks for joining us. Big love.
Key points in natural farming is it's really about tending to the microbial life of your growing environment, returning it to microbially diverse, like healthy natural environment is. If you've seen the movie, it's kind of old. I'm dating myself, but Fern Gully is like this spot, and the fairies are flying around, and everybody's functioning symbiotically, interconnectively, and nature is so much like that. It really is um, a beautiful, complex world of interconnectivity and in symbiosis and diversity. So that is kind of the core philosophy of natural farming: is to partner with nature to grow food, to work with natural law and these really simple techniques of producing your own fertilizer and your own biodiverse amendments, which is one of the core biodiverse amendments is IMO, Indigenous Microorganism. We use some acronyms in natural farming. I apologize for that in advance. It is a little disorienting at first, like joining the military, I think, and getting a bunch of new words for things. But it's boiled down, it's a teachable, science-based, and solid method for growing food without going to the store to purchase your fertilizer or relying on pesticide and herbicide to protect your plants. There is a iteration of natural farming that my teacher, Master Cho's son, who I've also gone to Korea and learned from, has created, and that is called Jadam. You often hear these words together. They are similar. And Jadam, there is less of the fungal side of the soil food web, and there is, to make up for that, this incredible and really a gift to agriculture pesticidal suite. It's not really a pesticide because it's uh, it's a um, it's a plant nutrient, and we don't really need to call it a pesticide because it puts it into another category altogether. But yeah, natural farming is this beautiful kind of accessible way to grow crops that are full of nutrients, nutrient dense, and lacking any things that humans shouldn't eat. So that's yeah,
Yeah, thanks for that overview, Chris. So
totally.
we're using, so for example, we're fermenting different plants and different substances like sugar and beer and different things we're putting together and fermenting and making solutions for them, which are nutrients for the plants, to put it in another type of language. So
Hmm.
and Chris, can you give us just a snapshot of what IMO is and how that's used? Because you've talked a lot about how IMO is probably one of the kings when it comes to um, microbes, and or maybe queens. when it comes to nourishing the soil and the environment. So can you tell us what that is and why that is and how to make it and how it's connected to what you're learning about now with the pest
Yeah,
disease
absolutely.
management?
So one of the things we'll talk about today is something we developed over the last 10 years, so just trial and playing with, called IPMO, integrate Indigenous Predatory Microorganism, which can help us deal with bugs in a natural or just like nature does it kind of way. But IMO is stands for Indigenous Microorganism. We have all heard about the microbes we can buy in jugs for our farm. Incredible tools for tending to the nutrients we need for our plants. But IMO works with the tree and the soil in a process that James White named rhizophagy. And basically, the any plant or tree like this one, as big as it is above, is full root base below ground that looks very similar to the above ground tree or plant. Um, and those roots down below are very similar to a human gut, whereas a human gut is tubular, and inside we have our dirt and nutrients and microbes that process our nutrients for the human. The root is rod shaped, and right around or outside of it, it has the food, the dirt, the nutrients, and the microbes necessary to process those nutrients. Um, in a healthy natural system, the tree is getting incredible on-demand access to nutrients through biochemical communication. Basically, the tree is photosynthesizing and producing sugars and excess nutrients put out around its roots, and those are picked up by fungi and bacteria, archaea, yeast, the whole of the soil food web, and that causes the microbial community to thrive and to grow and to increase. One of the key players in that is fungi, as they are like the subway system and the bone structure all at the same time. And that those microbes can process fungi, can process the dirt, the sand, silt, and clay, the stuff that you know um, that becomes ready minerals for the trees. Um, what IMO is a very effective way to go to the healthiest places, the fern gullies of the local environment, and cultivate diversity, real diversity, testable diversity, and get it from these wild places that have been pretty untouched by agricultural systems or human interaction, and bring them back to our growing environment. So a typical farm has been tilled, processed, used for generations. And as a result, much of that work, though not inherently negative, has diminished the microbial diversity. It just happens. It's part of the outcome. And what we can do in natural farming is we can go and coax microbes into. We put out rice boxes. Rice is used because it is high in fat and protein, which are fungal foods. So it actually gets cultured by fungi, and we found pretty amazing diversity as far as the fungi goes. We've gotten to do some DNA testing. We really do need to get more of that accessible for the science-minded to read, as it's right now a lot of within the community and not published. But we go and we get incredible diversity to culture on rice. We put it in a dormant state using sugar. The dryness of sugar is like the dry salt barrel that they would put fish in for a long sea voyage. It causes everything to kind of go dormant and stop. Um, and then we grow it out on grains and wood and liquid nutrients. And so in the end, we've gotten a little snapshot of natural diversity from a mountain place or a kind of a wild untouched zone, and we get this large kind of usable material to re-inoculate our farmland with as a result. And it's a bit nuanced. There's some details that you have to follow, but it is a accessible means of creating a product that we don't have access to on the shelf. There's not really a diverse microbial inoculum that we can buy. So this per gallon of dry material is probably the comparable market value would be $500 to $600 for a gallon of IMO4. And we couldn't even buy that if we wanted to. Um, and so it's the best of the microbially diverse products you can make, um, unless you have a year or more to make it. If you had a static pile on the edge of a wild forest, you could create a really amazingly diverse microbial community. But IMO plays this amazing line in the nuance of fungal development that allows you to culture a large amount of diverse microbes in 3 to 4 weeks.
So fast, so powerful. And Chris, with the IMO, tell us how you've scaled that. Like what I mean, lots of backyard gardeners are practicing it, and but what scale have you been able to use the IMO?
Yeah, I was making um, really rich 90,000 pound piles for our farm here in Hawaii when I was doing it in solid state form. I then kind of moved to a liquid version where we trialed a bunch of different ways to get diversity to grow out in liquid form. And so I'm working with the largest Kona coffee farm in Hawaii nowadays, and they're using a liquid version of IMO, which has mitigated their pest and disease problems. So they were dealing with coffee borer, they were dealing with rusts and leaf blights, and they have 100% remediation now by applying this diverse liquid version. That's much cheaper, um, per acre, but it isn't as instantly effective. You don't have as much soil microbe development um, kind of instantly like a solid application. So it requires reapplication to kind of keep protecting that canopy and over time developing the microbial diversity in the soil. But yeah, pennies on the dollar compared to solid application. The solid application is still cheap. Um, I taught this, I mean, as far as scale, it's scaled in several different ways. I got to go to Burma, Myanmar, and teach a community of 1,000 coffee farmers who are all very smallholder, everything by hand on their farm, coffee farmers. But there's 1,000 of them feeding this one um, coffee buyer who is there really to provide the best wages for these coffee farmers. Really kind of sweethearted business model they have there. But we went, taught this community. They all went out and taught their friends, and now there's a whole region in northern Myanmar that uses natural farming successfully. We taught them basic composting using those same techniques, and so that is a form of scaling a whole region being able to convert from buying that $100 a bag fertilizer from China and able to shift to a more sustainable and safe meaning they're not having as much crop failure
Mm-hmm.
type of agriculture. I've also worked with my friend Kyle Schnell out in Iowa, and we did a project for his farm. It's 1,000 acres. He's this sixth generation row crop farmer there in Iowa. And we made a large pile IMO. We had 1,600 gallon tea brewers, and he was putting it into his large cedar combine, injecting liquid IMO and FAA plus nutrient into the ground with his seeds. So that was definitely large scale, and a bunch of kind of scales in between. I was just out in Bakersfield. There's a um, award-winning olive farm making great olive oil. They also do pistachios and almonds, about 350 acres there in Bakersfield. And they have a liquid IMO production lab now where they make small batches of IMO and spray out their 350 acres using these tea brewers and
Mm.
air blast sprayers. So yeah,
So
it's
cool.
definitely scalable, and that's kind of the goal, is to see America's kind of large scale agriculture shift into a sustainable way to grow food.
Yeah, yes, amen to that. And tell us about so the liquid IMO though, are you taking that IMO that you're making and then you're turning that into like a compost tea or an
That's exactly right.
extract? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so not an extract. I think there's great merit to extracts in
Mm-hmm.
that when you have a good um, microbially diverse compost, you can just wash it and basically suspend. You're not creating anything new. You're just taking out the microbes, suspending them in water for easy application, and that way
Mm-hmm.
you can get it onto the leaves of the plants.
Mm-hmm.
um, but an extract is only as there's only as much quantity present of microbes as there was in the original compost. So applying that compost to the soil, you would still be getting that same amount of microbial life out. You wouldn't be necessarily multiplying it, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's a way of doing it. What we've found, again, because of just finding that sweet spot of nutrients and balanced food for them to grow in a water column with some aeration and this food mix, we can cause a handful of IMO to turn into 40 gallons of a whole lot more um, quantity of microbes than we started with. So we can have a small amount as an inoculum to the water column and then grow out a large quantity, get it applied to the canopy and to the ground. Um, but that's something that the regenerative community in agriculture has actually struggled a bit to get a truly diverse liquid compost. So actively aerated compost C is something people do. It's done all over to varying levels of success. And so um, what I really like to point out when we talk about actively aerated compost tea, AACT, which is kind of the standard term for this. We call it liquid IMO, but it is in effect very similar um, to actively aerated compost tea. Um, People make tea for different reasons. Um, there's two categories I like to put them in: either nutrients, where we're putting some microbes and some nutrients into a water column to further break down the nutrients and make them more plant available during the brewing process. So that's a nutrient tea. Um, Typically, nutrient tea, so full of nutrients that there are specific microbes, often lactobacilli family microbes, that are breaking down those nutrients, making them more plant available. And fungi, the mix of nutrients and enzymes, the pH, all of it isn't quite right for fungal growth. Whereas The other category of actively aerated compost tea is more like a specifically aimed at microbial development and not so much a food. It's more an inoculum. Food can come later, food can go on the ground, but we're really looking to kind of restore the gut flora, if you will, of the plant as the main purpose of the tea. And that will have less focus on what nutrients are in there and more focus on what balance of materials, nutrients, and such are best for growing out microbes in a water column. And so figuring out your why on your tea, I think is important, and you'll fall into those two categories. Both have great purpose, but are definitely different in kind of setup and in outcome.
I love how you pulled that apart for us, Chris. Thank you. That's really, really
Yeah,
helpful. And now tell us about IPMO and what you've been
yeah,
discovering with it and what it is and what's exciting you about it.
yeah. Really fun. Has anybody heard of IPMO in the chat? Um, And has anybody messed? Maybe raise your hand if you've, or type a me if you've messed with compost teas or actively aerated teas. Or has anybody played with this?
So me, if you played with P, played with P and T. Sorry. Oh my gosh, I think I'm funny. Oh, okay, so me, if you've played with T, and but also just say yes if you have heard of IPMO, which is different. So you say yes if you've heard of IPMO. All right, we got a couple yeses in the
Awesome.
house. Awesome. And just a one if you're brand new to all of this. Just a one if you're brand new to
Well,
all.
we have some newbies. We're bringing
Yeah,
everybody along together. I think that's the goal.
awesome.
Um, so yeah, extract is like I said, it's pretty safe. You've the thing that I don't love when I'm trying to scale and cover a large amount of area, the reason I don't lean to extract is I could already apply my IMO in a solid state and get those same microbes onto my plants. And that solid state application is really effective. So um, that's why I wanted to see what we could do as far as multiplying out microbes in a water column, and we found a sweet spot. So I strongly encourage people, if you want to play with that, to really hone in on the exact recipe, as it is the sweet spot in production in a water column. But um, I'm really excited to talk about IPMO. Really excited to share it. It's been a long time in process. I do um, don't share things quickly before I trial them. That is a strong ethos of mine. I learned natural farming in 2009 and played with it more and more and started scaling it in 2011. And I never taught it until 2014 is the first time I taught, because for me it was really a flower.
Mhm.
Um, it was really important to know its efficacy. People really excited about it. Natural farming, they were making a nonprofit, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to participate and join the nonprofit and do all these things to further this?" I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna just go on with it to see how it works." And I spent 4 years trialing. We did a 14 tree trial to a 5 acre trial with some significant fear to a 144 acre trial over 4 years, running that while I was beginning to teach it. And I knew what the ins and outs and uh, how to help people avoid some of the pitfalls I did. So IPMO is not something that we're pulling out of an idea jar quickly. It's something that's now been trialed by um, wonderful science-minded agricultural professionals for over 10 years. So this is something figured out a long time ago, and we've been with. And it, it, and we found this is very much one of those kind of um, the process of culturing
Chris, we're just losing you a little bit. Is he cutting out for anybody else?
other
Yeah.
in the carapace.
Chris,
So
can you
it's
hear me?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I can
you're
hear you.
cutting out. We couldn't quite hear you.
Oh, sorry, I'll stop walking around.
Yeah,
Um,
now we can hear you again.
okay, my bad. Um, I went into
So we
the
heard that you trialed it and that it's been 10 years in trial and now you're really excited to share it. That's kind of where we got.
yeah, yeah. So this is you know, just for context, because some people are like, what does it take to do all this? I've never heard of these things. Like, what kind of equipment do I need? For example, if somebody wanted to do this and learn this on their farm, it would be a small covered space with a dirt floor, would be how you could go through the whole IMO process, making it. It's like turning a small pile of compost. It just has specific parameters. Liquid IMO is a little mesh paint strainer from Home Depot and a small, $30, $40 air pump, and some nutrients, along with some inoculum, and 24 to 36 hours to brew it. We're talking about pretty simple tools. The hardest aspect of things in natural farming is really just the commitment to a little bit of time to learn, just like learning how to make sourdough effectively, or if you want to cook meringues, it's kind of like learning baking, or a new riff on the guitar. It's definitely just takes a little bit of learning curve. Um, so IPMO is similar. We're not talking about a ton of tough tech. Um, we take rice. Again, we use white rice. The um, though we talk about indigenous microorganisms, and we are focused on culturing indigenous things, we're um, we're okay using rice because it's one of the most effective ways to culture fungi, kind of artificially, meaning you're not just going out into the forest and getting a stick pile and bringing it back and it has fungi on it. We're intentionally getting it to grow on a substrate. Um, Rice has been bleached washed if it's white, so it's been compromised a little bit in its molecular structure, which allows it to be a really ready food for fungi. It allows us to do things slightly faster than the slow chew onto some wood or whatnot. So what we do with IPMO is we add beetles or insect frass or your local problem pest. So I'm working with ginger here in Hawaii, on our farm, and one of our main pests is a Japanese rose beetle, little tiny beetle. So I go out at night, collect them off the leaves, and I put them in some rice that I've cooked. Um, and I put that out in nature with some fungi around it. I find a fungal rich environment, and I get, not every time, but every other time, um, I'll get blooms on the beetles themselves, these white, puffy microbial blooms. And I have just found a carapace eating fungi. So when I first learned about IPMO, I learned about it from nature. Nature taught me about it. I was doing IMO. I was making 500 gallons of tea at a time. We had a whole streamlined process for our farm to be able to spray out liquid IMO on our macadamia nut trees. And the substrate I was going to make my material on, this highly fungal diverse inoculum, had weevils infesting it. When I went to get it to collect and put on our to make some more IMO for, and I was bummed because I was like, oh no, I have to go get more material. This is terrible. It's going to take me a week. I'm in Hawaii. Everything's hard to get. And I decided to make it anyway. So I made my IMO on weevil infested grain. And while I was doing it, which I had done this many, many times, so I had very clear parameters of what was going in and what to expect. And I was getting unique or never before seen puffballs of white. And I'm looking at the center of these puffballs, and there's little weevils in the middle of these white puffballs. And I was like, that's really interesting, kind of strange. And I had all these questions, but I was busy. I was managing the farm. So I made it into liquid IMO, sprayed it on 20 acres, and like a good farmer, walked through my 20 acres to see, not specifically because of the beetles, but just because that's what you do when you get an application of fertilizer out. We're checking how our trees are responding. And as I'm walking through that orchard, I see puffballs in the crook of a branch or on the side of a tree. I'm like, what is that? And I look closer and I have a beetle that's covered in white fungi, in white bloom. And I'm like, oh, and where I didn't have time before because I was busy, now my curiosity was way, way higher priority than the work I had to do. So I ran down and started to look into, okay, what eats beetles? What's going on here? And what I found was in my research was that the predators of my pests, the main pests I have in my crop, are fungi. The leading predators of a lot of our plant pests are microbes. And so what I was seeing was an entomopathogenic fungi, a fungi that eats bugs. Um, and this was like, oh my gosh, how wonderful. Now we have an indigenously cultured. I cultured those microbes within a few miles of my farm.